Welcome to Warped Legacy. This story starts in 2015. During the summer of 2015, I was planning what I called a spiritual survival trip. I called it Straight Up Survival. And it was a trip for men to get out in the woods, get away, and reprioritize. You signed up and went on this trip. Everyone got a package. And one of the things in that package was a knife. The knife wasn't just a tool. The knife itself and the words that were etched on the knife were an important part of the lesson and experience of straight up survival. The weekend of the trip comes, and we all have an amazing experience. Throughout the weekend, each one of us ended up finding a stick that we started using as a walking stick. I ended up bringing mine home. And when I got it home, I used my knife to clean off all of the bark, and I hand sanded the entire thing until I had a smooth finish. Then I gave it a finish using tung oil. That stick means a lot to me. When I was planning for the first trip, I was told I was crazy. I was told I didn't have the right skill set to put this trip together. I know people who didn't sign up for the trip because they thought I would fail. That stick is a representation of a success. So after cleaning up my walking stick, I decided that next year's meaningful take-home item was going to be a walking stick of their own. So I went out with a friend on his property and found a bunch of trees and sticks the right size to clean up and make some really nice walking sticks. And after the success of the first trip, I was going full steam ahead, preparing for trip 2. I was creating flyers, I was calling conferences, I was building a booth out of dead trees that were in my backyard. I made a promotional video, and I told anyone who would listen about the amazing experience the group had last year. everyone who went on the trip had an amazing time and told me they learned and they grew as men. I was excited to share that experience with others. So now it's summer 2016. It's just a few weeks before Straight Up Survival Trip 2. Only one person has signed up, and I just received a call saying they are no longer available. Straight Up Survival Trip 2 is dead. My time was wasted. None of the promotion I did paid off. All the energy that I put in to gathering those sticks was wasted. I had no one to give them to. That's not the end of the story. If we back up to spring 2016, when I was at a men's conference promoting Straight Up Survival, I had the corner booth. My corner was set up like a small campsite. I'd put a few undecorated Christmas trees around to make it look like we were in the woods. My booth, like I said, was built out of the old trees that were in my yard. So everything in the corner looked like it was wooded and rustic. I had a fake campfire, and I even smoked a pillow beforehand and put it in a box and had a fan blowing through it to make a campfire smell. And while I was at this conference, I met another group of guys. They were promoting their own conference. And as we talked, we realized we had the same goal. Our desire to do ministry had grown out of a frustration from the judgmental and legalistic attitude of so many mainstream churches. While these churches had good intentions, they had failed and chased away so many people who needed help. And we wanted to reach some of those people. So upon further conversation, they told me that I was coming to the Bulls Retreat. I knew nothing about what the Bulls Retreat was. All I knew is that according to these three guys that I had just met that day, I was going to the Bulls Retreat. So the weekend of the Bulls Retreat comes. I drive to a private lake that has a main house and a couple small cabins for lodging. Still unsure what to expect, I go and introduce myself to the people that are already there. And after the general introductions and almost meaningless small talk, we get a beer and we sit down around the campfire. And the first real thing that was said to me, sitting around this campfire, beer in hand, the guy next to me turns to me and says, "First thing I learned at a Bulls retreat, it's okay to be a Christian and say f***." I knew something about these guys was different. I knew they were Christians. I knew they loved God. But I also knew they were unashamed to be real. They were unafraid to be themselves. And for some of these guys, that meant sitting around the fire and swearing. For others, that meant being the stereotypical black worship leader. There were pastors, felons, police officers, and insurance salesmen. That's also where I met the guy who got me into metalworking. Without him, I wouldn't have my forge, and I wouldn't have been able to do most of what I've done on YouTube. Now, the Bulls get their name from a video called The Battle at Kruger. In this video, some lions get a buffalo calf, and the Bulls gather together and fight back. It's an epic battle for the life of this calf. They saw this video before they had a name, while they were just meeting. And they said, that's who we are. We're the Bulls. Now fast forward to early 2018. I'm overworked, I'm overstressed, I'm anxious, and I've fallen into a depression. Now the Bulls meet every week, but their meeting's an hour away from me. So I head out and make the hour-long trip to make it to a Bulls meeting. And at that meeting, I didn't say much, but I listened a lot. One of the guys was struggling with some health issues. The doctors were making him go through cane training. I didn't realize you had to be trained how to use a cane. But the whole situation was making him feel weak and old and less of a man. Another guy at this meeting had a walking stick. He uses it as his cane, and he calls it his man stick. And he said, "We need to get you one of these man sticks." As soon as he said that, I knew what I had to do. I knew what I had tucked away in the back of my garage. So I went home, got out one of those sticks that I had gathered in 2016, and started changing it from a dead tree to a man stick. As this man was talking about his struggle, he was talking about how he felt tremors inside him. And as I burned the lightning pattern onto this walking stick, to this man stick, I imagined the tremors coming out of his body and going through the walking stick and into the ground. One of the things the bulls talk about is something a lot of them call their God name. It's a name that God calls them, that defines their identity. It's who God made them to be. Well, this man's name is Beloved. And as I was making this staff for Beloved, I realized I wasn't thinking about my depression. I wasn't focusing on my anxiety. I wasn't drowning in stress. I was doing something with a purpose that had meaning. And that meaning was beyond myself. Now, I'm not saying for a second that God made Straight Up Survival Trip 2 fail, so I would have these trees so I could make a staff for this man 2 years later. That failure is on me. That's life and circumstances. What I am saying is that because I was willing to pay attention and I was willing to listen, those circumstances were able to help me and touch someone else.